You know, yesterday, I think I can say this now, I didn't want to create a tense atmosphere at the meeting. Although I could have reacted harder to some things, I told Mr. Zelensky what I needed to say between the four eyes. And I wanted us to give the public an image that there is interest in good neighborly relations, which there is. But there are things where, if it repeats itself, we will protest very strongly. For example, we didn't understand the topic of attacks on the labor infrastructure in the territory of the Russian Federation. Mr. Zelensky said repeatedly that if Russia attacks the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, it has the right to attack the energy infrastructure in Russia. And I answer, but it harms us. You can't protect your own national interests by harming others. Have you found an agreement or not? No, it's simply evident that Ukraine, in the course of the war, did not care about the interests of other states. What I read, for example, by the leaders of the European Union, that they were not in China at the celebrations of the 80th anniversary. There was an incredible opportunity to talk. If we don't talk to each other and we're going to shove our heads in the sand, we're just deepening the crisis. And in fact, Europe has kind of isolated itself. Do you know what's the most annoying thing? That the chairman of the sovereign government should explain why he is going to China. Have you all gone mad? China is one of the countries that is becoming a world leader. And let's all be happy that China has its own policy, which is peaceful. I believe you all heard the statements that were made during the 80th anniversary. We must respect China as a country, which has proven impossible. You know, everyone is bragging about our country as a country where only one political party works, and I don't know what else. So let's compare. We have the democratic system, which we are all looking forward to. We think we are the best in the world when we can complain, when everyone says what they want, when there is no authority. The economy is declining. We have huge political scandals and crises in every other country. Political systems are falling apart, but we are bragging to China that China is like this or like that. When I met President Putin, we talked about bilateral cooperation between Slovakia and Russia. Again, yesterday I said it openly. You have heard it 100 times from me. Regardless of who thinks what about Russia, we think that the ties with the Russian Federation need to be standardized. Just like there is an iron curtain between Europe and the Russian Federation. So we have a constructive approach to the Russian Federation, and we want things to start as soon as possible. And let's be honest, Mr. Editor, you think that Western companies left everything behind in Russia. It is not true at all. They shout at home, send moral appeals, and their companies are still in Russia. You think that the West does not take LNG from Russia because Russia is the second largest producer of LNG in Europe. You know, morality is one thing, moral appeals, but hard business is another thing. What is Slovak diplomacy's position within the EU today? Very sovereign. You would be very surprised because this is not the only case when I speak sovereignly. You remember the obligatory quotas. You remember many other things. When nuclear power plants were almost forbidden, we decided to build the third and fourth block in Mochovce. I have no concerns at all about Slovak diplomacy and Slovak Republic within the EU. I am concerned about the EU. Mr. Editor, what did we think when we isolate ourselves and do not go to the celebrations in China? That we will disable the Chinese celebrations. What will actually happen? Chinese representatives were prepared to meet with all important European leaders if they came there and the army could move. The EU thinks that it is the most beautiful, the wisest, and is in love with itself. We are full of conflicts, scandals, but it is not a scandal that the former Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Reinders, is now suspected of laundering dirty money. It is a bit too much sometimes. Consider that today China is very important when it comes to so-called valuable land and inedible resources that the automobile industry needs. Of course, when China sees how someone behaves, it has a feeling that the export permits need to be extended and so on. I opened it, and immediately we were told that there would be no obstacles when it comes to export permits for the products we need for the automobile industry.
You claimed, Mr. Premier, perhaps as one of the first, that Ukraine will not be a member of NATO. Today it is a reality. Other security guarantees are being sought. You also clarified this question with Volodymyr Zelensky.
I told him that we talked about the fact that Ukraine should not be a member of NATO. We talked about it because we believed from the very beginning that if Ukraine is not in NATO, it is the first precondition for the end of the military conflict. If we continue to play with the theme that Ukraine will be in NATO, the conflict will never end, because this is one of the reasons for NATO's expansion, and the fact that Russia was literally deceived by NATO's expansion in the past. I am happy that security guarantees are being sought. But let's not forget that Ukraine's security guarantees should also be sought for Russia's security guarantees. There should be one package. We can't just create one side, for example, Russia or Ukraine. It must go hand in hand with how the world will look when the war ends. And we believe that the war will end very quickly, although at the moment it does not look like that at all. Security guarantees, Mr. Editor. Yesterday I got this question from President Zelensky. I answered very clearly. The Slovak Republic will not place any soldiers on the territory of Ukraine.